We partner with veterans and their families to smooth out all the wrinkles in transitioning from the military to civilian life.
I got out, I wanted mission and purpose and impact.
A lot of the people who transition want that as well. They're a great addition to a community because they want to be part of something bigger than just themselves.
I'm just wondering, what's the common thread that veterans bring to the table that you found?
You're listening to the NEI Pioneer Podcast. This podcast is all about sharing the authentic stories of the people in our region. Today we have two guests joining us on the show to share about INvets. Sarah Harrison, who is the CEO, as well as Andrew Messmer, who is the Veteran Engagement Manager. INvets is an organization that serves our region, and their mission is to support veterans throughout their transition into the job market. In this episode, Jonathan is joined by a guest host, Nick Darrah, who is our VP of Partnerships and Government Relationships. These four share an insightful conversation about the economic impact of veteran job placement, as well as the importance of INvets' work in helping their transition. If you would like to learn more about this organization, we've linked all their information in the description below. But for now, let's jump into this episode.
Very excited to have you guys here today. Our friends from INvets. So we've got Sarah and Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to say this. I have to take a quick pause and say Nick Darrah, who is one of my business partners here, VP of Partnerships and Government Relations, this is his maiden voyage of hosting the show with me.
Yep, happy to be here.
So this is going to be fun. And look at the smiles on you guys. You guys are happy to be here. All right. So let's get into it with INvets. Would you mind giving us an overview of INvets, what it does, what the goals are, et cetera?
Absolutely. We partner with veterans and their families and the communities in Indiana to smooth out all the wrinkles in transitioning from the military to civilian life. And we do have a positive impact on the economics of the state through that work. So we have a team of people who travel to different installations across the country. We have 5 what we call veteran engagement managers. And we have Andrew, who is our 6th. The first 5 cover different regions: Northwest, North Central, Northeast, Central, and Southern Indiana. And Andrew's lucky enough to cover the whole state for
Winter by default or by design?
By design.
Okay.
So one of the areas we identified last year was doing more in support of the veterans that are in the state, as well as our reserve components. So it's the Army, Air National Guard, the Air Reserve, Marine Reserve as well. So great state of Indiana, we have all of those forces here. So in our business model and supporting that wonderful military talent that's leaving active duty, a lot of our employers also value the reserve component service members we have as well. So my role is direct support for those individuals and plugging in and supporting the rest of the team.
And it sounds like you're both from Indiana, right? Yeah, all right. Well, I wanted to see. I didn't think. I'm not that thick. Okay. So, don't ask my team about that. But so, where are you from originally?
I'm from York, in the north of England. It's an old Roman city. I've been here. Well, I moved here a long time ago, and somebody said I'd be here for 3 years, and I know that I've put my Christmas tree up more than 3 times. But came with Lily originally.
Oh, wow.
But I worked with Wes, who was the first CEO that we had, a founder, along with a lot of other people, including Northeast Indiana, several people from there. When he started this as a project, I actually took his other job down with Connexus. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, I've been here a long time.
Yeah. And so what were your first impressions of Indiana?
Well,
very different from where you're from York.
Absolutely. But, when I lived in York, it's an old Roman city. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you want to look, Google it. It's still got the original city walls around it. But when you grow up somewhere, you take it for granted. It wasn't until I moved away that I thought, oh, I lived in a really nice place. And then just coming to America, it's just very different. But there's good and bad in both places,
Let's talk about prior to INvets and your military experience with each of you, because I guess the first question that I would have about that is, why the military? Like, why did you start out and we'll certainly start with you, Andrew.
Yeah.
What got you into the military? Did you know this from a young age? Were your parents involved in military?
So at a young age, I knew I wanted to serve in the military. I always was just drawn to it. All branches, too, and the differences between them, it was just very exciting to me, thinking all the way back to when I was 5-6 years old. But I originally joined pre-September 11th, 2001, and didn't have a great experience, so I got out of the military. And then I remember being in college and watching the news and seeing the Twin Towers and the plane striking, and immediately I was pulled right back. I knew I had to get back into the military.
Yeah.
So I almost finished college and decided that college wasn't right. I wanted to get back in. So I got back into the military and was able to serve just over 15 years until, unfortunately, my third knee surgery forced a medical retirement.
Oh, wow. Is there, and again, my dad was military, but I certainly am not. I don't know if you can tell by looking at me. But although the beard, I don't know, man. So when you think back to getting back into, is there a difference between your first round in the military?
Oh, absolutely.
What was that?
So everything pre-September 11th was, I call it the Cold War holdover. We were training everything designed as if it was the Soviet Union, although there was no Soviet Union at that time. And then the lessons that had been learned, the last conflict had been Operation Desert Storm.
Right.
So it was almost 10 years prior. And everything changed with all the new lessons learned with the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq. So getting back in, being in both of those conflicts, all the training, everything was focused really around those very two specific wars, and it was night and day difference. Just the intensity of it, the weapons, the equipment, everything that we had been upgraded. It was really great coming back in and seeing new uniforms, new gear, new weapons, all of that. Very exciting.
How long was your break?
I was out almost 4 years.
Should we call it a break?
Yeah, it was a break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get to go to college. I get to have fun. Be kind of a dumb kid a little bit.
And then back to business.
Yep, absolutely.
And Sarah, what about you? What got you into the military?
My father served when, it was national service, so I heard a lot of things about that. But my brother also served. Ironically, he left home at 16 to join the army to escape my father's discipline. So,
really?
Yeah, that
go
was
into another form of discipline,
absolutely.
Right? Wow.
Heard lots of things from him, and I was always very interested. I wanted to join the Air Force to do physical therapy in the Air Force, but I kind of decided that after I'd chosen some subjects at school. They wanted me to train prior to going in to get the qualification. I didn't have the right qualifications to get into college, so I did something else, which was also medically based. It was a radiation therapist, so I used to treat cancer.
Wow.
And then I moved south to Oxford, another beautiful city.
Yes.
To work after I'd qualified, and I moved with a friend, and turns out we both had this desire to serve in some capacity. So we joined 219 Field Hospital, and I was with that unit for a while, and then I moved back north and went to 212 Field Hospital. So I did about 9 years, but it was the equivalent really to the Guard. And I loved it, despite my brother's rude comments about you're a weekend warrior and you've joined the Rodneys.
Shout out to your brother.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Still a very valuable service.
Absolutely. At that point, we made up 80% of the actual Army medical service, so it was pretty cool.
Well, I've made the mistake with Nick before because I said, Nick, you used to be a Marine, right? And what was the answer?
There's no such thing as a former Marine. Yeah.
See?
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Oh, there you go.
But
So
no,
I
I find it really interesting just to jump in.
Yeah, please.
Andrew, you talked about you almost finished college. There's so many people who almost joined the military, and they like to tell you that story. So it's kind of funny how, when oftentimes as vets, people are like, oh, well, I almost joined or I would have joined, right? And it's kind of a cliche in the veteran community, but to hear you say, I almost finished college, but instead I joined is a complete, kind of ironic 180 from what you hear a lot. I had a similar experience, wanted to be in the military from when I was a kid. I landed on the Marine Corps very early, and joined 9/11. I was in high school when 9/11 hit, and that sealed the deal for me as well.
Oh yeah.
But it was a great experience for me. It was an awesome experience, just kind of life lessons and maturing and growing up, and just all of the things that you do as a young, junior enlisted in my case. Can you talk a little bit about transitioning? So kind of getting back to INvets and focus, and because everybody in the military has certain experiences. Everybody's experience is unique, right?
Absolutely.
The branches are all specialized and a little bit different, and the culture is a little bit different, even within units, within the branches, or within MOSs, within that, everything's a little bit unique. But there's certain kind of universal experience or skill sets or things that happen, and how does that translate? I want to talk a little bit more how that translates into the civilian world, but how does INvets help that young person who's only ever experienced oftentimes high school, military, and now you're going into either an academic setting or professional setting in this transition? What does that transition look like, maybe from your experience initially, and then some shared experiences that you've had from folks you guys have helped to transition out?
My initial transition experience is a terrible example because I was a teenager who thought I knew everything.
What?
Yeah, right.
That never happens. Ask your son now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate experience was that thinking I knew everything, thinking I had my whole life mapped out, and I knew every step along the way, and everything would be perfect. And the expression I later learned again from the Army is that the enemy gets a vote. So life gets a vote in all of our plans. So from my first experience, then to when I was medically retired in 2019, and the differences in that, and knowing that there's going to be a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of uncertainties. Specific to the medical separation process, I didn't even have a date. So I was basically every 2 weeks I would check and find out when am I going to be finally retired and when will I become a civilian again. And for me personally, there was no real assistance outside of the military. I had friends, other service members I had known, folks I reach out to on Facebook, but nobody I could pick up the phone and call, and nobody who'd been there before. I mean, it was nothing. I was really just kind of left to my own experiences and what I thought. So,
how much of that is fear of the unknown versus I mean, because it's not necessarily unknown. It's just that your life has changed so much in a few years.
Yes.
Now you got to go back to that. What's changed, right? I mean, is it an anticipatory fear that you had of transition, or
there's fear involved. Not knowing, it's like I have a job. I am guaranteed I'm going to get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month. I have health insurance. I have life insurance. I have everything that I need. It's literally the military for me specifically. The Army gives you everything that you need. So whether you're on an installation or if you're in a temporary duty location, no matter what, you're either getting the money or you're getting the items from the military, and it's wonderful, and it's this nice warm blanket that wraps around us and makes us feel very good.
Yeah.
And then when you start to feel that blanket being pulled off of you, and
it's change.
Yes, that cold washes over you, and it's like, well, what am I going to do for employment? How am I going to provide for my family? As we start to look at the job market, there's all of these opportunities, and it's, well, all of my skills don't match these skills. So how am I going to get a job? Because everything I write down is military terminology.
Yeah.
I don't know the civilian terminology. So, then unfortunately, these things start to compound on top of each other. And, I was married at the time, and that definitely added stress to the relationship. And then, of course, not just your spouse, but your children start to feel those effects as well. So, it was very frightening.
When we're talking about the transitions, it's interesting because Nick and I, one of the first conversations that we had when I joined NEI was about his transition. And it's so funny because when I moved to town here and I was looking for apartments, I ran into his cousin who works at Three Rivers. And I walked in and we started talking. She's like, "Where do you work?" And I told her. She said, "Well, You know, Nick has always been the guy in the family. He's always been the one to go to. He's the rock. He's the solid guy and stuff. And you know Nick, so I mean, you can see it in him. But when we started talking about his transition in, it sounded to me like you knew exactly what you were going to do.
To an extent, I mean, so there is that fear of getting out, that loss of community, that loss of the support system. So like Andrew was,
probably,
yeah,
Oh,
like Andrew was saying that you have housing, you have food, you have healthcare, you have a job, you have a paycheck. All of that is just there when you're in, and especially I was active duty. So, and there's also a pathway in the military, right? So you start here, and you do certain things, and you do certain time, and there's a direct trajectory from where you begin and where you can go, and that doesn't exist in the civilian world, right? So there's not a direct pathway for every, you plug in here, you do X, Y, and Z, and you come out here, and that is something that a lot of vets I think struggle with, that I've heard, and that transition is helpful with. But I got out, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, which I was very focused on law enforcement. I was in the infantry, and a lot of people in my position kind of felt that those skills that you learn in the military, particularly in infantry, are only directly applicable to law enforcement.
It's like a cliche.
It is almost, and there are a lot of people who do go into law enforcement and they have great careers, and it's an awesome and a career to have, and we need good people doing that. But it's not the only thing that you can do, and it took me a while to realize that I wasn't necessarily pursuing law enforcement because I wanted to be in law enforcement. I was pursuing it because I wanted mission and purpose and impact. And so there were these certain things, these kind of themes that I wanted to have, and it took me a while to realize that. So I was fortunate to have a good support system, and to have, we had a good veteran service officer here in town, and we still do, and was given some direction of where to go and what to do. And we were talking about this yesterday, but like paperwork was scary. Like the idea, in the infantry,
It's funny you're carrying a machine gun.
Yeah, well,
Scary.
Yeah.
Firefights were normal. Paperwork was scary, right? And so
That's
like
great.
the idea of like, am I going to do this right? Am I going to screw it up? Where do I go? How do I do this? Is college for me? What do I do? And so a lot of guys that I got out with around the same time I got out in 2008. Really great time to enter the job market.
Oops.
So I was smart enough to go, not intelligent enough, but made the smart enough decision to go to college, and use my GI Bill benefits that had some, you had a little bit of income, you had some structure, you had some purpose and some mentorship and things like that. Here I went to what is now Purdue Fort Wayne. There was a really good veteran culture there. We had a ton of vets. At the time, we had more vets enrolled in VA benefits at what was IPFW than Purdue West Lafayette did.
Oh, wow.
And we were a third of the size or a quarter of the size or something like that in student population. So that has a lot to do with the military culture that we have here in Northeast Indiana. So the 122nd Fighter Wing and 1st of the 293rd Infantry Battalion and a handful of the other smaller Guard and Reserve units that we have in the area. That's where a lot of the vets at IPFW were from. But then you had guys like me who were active duty and came home. But so there was a little bit of that community, because vets we tend to find each other. Yeah. We tend to gravitate towards each other.
You guys have your own language.
We do. We have our own language. You can see somebody from across the way and kind of tell you the way that they hold themselves, the way that they dress, or certain tattoos or certain things like that you can recognize.
I wonder if it's right now is probably a good time to mention that Nick is wearing taco socks.
I am.
I don't know if anybody else is.
Yes.
All the military wear those.
Those are military issues. Okay.
Bob Ross, right
there we go. Nice.
I was just going to touch on a couple of things Nick said, about the camaraderie. Although I wasn't more than, the reserve, if you like, that was one of the hardest things when I left, because I think Jerry, who most people know, call it trauma bonding, but you go through such a lot together, and everybody understands what everybody's going through, and you work as a team. And I think if we speak to any of the people that we're helping transition, at some point they will say, or that we've helped. It's the camaraderie that they miss.
Yeah.
And you said, about finding a mission. You wanted to do something useful. I think a lot of the people who transition want that as well.
Absolutely.
So they look for something where they're useful, they have a purpose, and which is why when we bring residents in, they're a great addition to a community because they want to be part of something bigger than just themselves. So they're the people who are volunteering, they're the people who are coaching the kids in school, they'll do all that other stuff. But the other key thing, I always say there's a bell curve of people coming out, so you've got a few at one end who are maybe young, they maybe like Andrew was initially, did 3 or 4 years and thought, no, this isn't working for me, I'm coming out. Their needs are very different to somebody who's done 20 plus years and is retiring.
Yep.
So what we try and do is meet them where they are. But the one person who's transitioning is that one person, but underneath there's like an iceberg because it's family.
Yeah.
It's a spouse, it's kids. And so when you're transitioning them, you have to tick all the boxes. As they've said, everything was done in the Army. You ask Brian Evans in his first job interview, the lady said to him, well, what sort of package are you looking for, meaning salary? And Brian went, don't know what I earn.
Yeah.
He didn't know what he was actually getting. So, which to anybody in civilian streets, just beyond comprehension. But everything's sort of tiered. So, I do this, I go there, I earn this, I go there. Yeah. It's very different. And the schools are all there. So it's very hard. So we help with the schooling, the interview practice, the resume writing to, as Andrew says, to go from what does this mean in the military to how does this translate.
Well, see, okay, so that's what I was going to ask was because INvets is it's a nonprofit.
Correct.
And so there's probably not a lot of overlap with government funding, I would assume, right?
Well, we receive funding from the state government, and have done since 2020, which is when INvets went out from underneath the Connexus umbrella.
Oh, okay. Well, because the question that I was leading up to was, what was the alternative? So before you guys existed, what was the transition strategy in place, or okay?
Yeah. So there's.
I think I just made a joke.
Give credit where credit is due. I will say that the U.S. Department of Labor does have a program in place. It is not a end-all, be-all program. It's designed to stay at the federal level. So, obviously, in the military, Department of Defense. So, from a federal employee, so to speak, someone that's a member of the military, receiving that program through DOL, it helps, but it's not going to get you all the way to the city that you're living at. So to get from that federal level, going through the processes, then where we plug in at the state, and then where individual employees like myself living here in Northeast Indiana, able to support at the local boots on ground, so to speak, level.
The NEI Pioneer Podcast seems like the perfect place to plug our Pioneer Awards event. If you don't know, each year we host an awards event to celebrate our region's pioneers. Just like our podcast, this event aims to showcase and share the authentic stories of the people in this region. Now, this is a community-involved event. We had open nominations in the fall, and now we have our category finalists. This spring, we will have community voting, which is where you can get involved to vote on our category winners. Then we'll be followed by the event where we will announce the 2025 Pioneer of the Year. If you're in the Northeast Indiana region, we'll encourage you to go to pioneerstartshere.com to learn more about this event and how you can get involved. Again, that's pioneerstartshere.com. Now, let's get back into the podcast.
Can you guys talk a little bit about the importance of guiding people through that transitional process? I'm sure it varies all over the place.
Absolutely.
And it does. It varies by branch, and it varies by time as well. Yeah. So, like, when I was getting out, and I think from what I've heard, the Transition Assistance Program we refer to as TAP has gotten better over time as you're leaving. But to your question, Jonathan, I think with INvets, what existed before in terms of like specifically attracting to the state, there wasn't
nothing.
There wasn't,
no.
and there really isn't in other states, right?
There's a couple I think are trying to emulate
Yeah.
what
Now
we-
they are. They've seen our successes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So they are trying to do that, and I believe Wes actually helped Valor, which is in Kentucky.
Okay.
I think he gave them some guidance as well,
Yeah.
because we want to uplift everybody. It's
Yeah.
not like it's a big
So-
secret.
Yeah, we got into this at NEI around the same time that
Yeah.
INvets was founded. So we kind of partnered early on,
Yeah.
and we had a program called Hoosier Home Base, which the idea was having this front door to Northeast Indiana for veterans separating from the military. And you guys update me maybe on the numbers, but I remember back then, and this was 7-8 years ago, there were about 200,000 vets separating from the military every year. And the data showed that about a third of them were willing to go wherever life took them. A third of them were going to go back to where they enlisted from, and about a third were going to stay in that base location of where they separated. And so our goal at the time was we want to attract, we want to bring as many back as are willing to come back to start with. So Hoosiers who went away to serve, we want them to come home and rejoin the communities and bring those skill sets and those benefits and everything that they bring to the community. But we also really wanted to capture that third, as much of that third of the people who were just open to those opportunities. So are the numbers the same? Is the opportunity still out
I
there?
think we talk more about it's sort of 20-odd% for the Hoosiers going home.
Okay.
20-odd% for the people who are going to stay put, which makes sense for
Yep.
some families. And then it's around about 48% who are open
Okay.
to going anywhere. And as we always talk about, it's fantastic because, they're open to Indiana, but there's 49 other states on their radar.
Yeah.
So it's a tough sell.
So it's a really unique asset for a state to
Yeah.
have in terms of a talent
Absolutely.
pipeline, and that's something else. I think oftentimes, again, Jonathan and I were talking about this yesterday, is that veteran organizations or veteran-focused nonprofits in particular oftentimes focus on the vets that are struggling the most.
Yeah.
Which is we want to have those resources and services for people, but I think what's really cool about INvets is that it's not necessarily about the struggle. It's about capturing the quality.
Absolutely.
Right?
Talent.
And so there's that talent pipeline, and as economic developers, we know talent is the key to business attraction and retention and expansion. I mean, we've been in a really tight labor market for over a decade, and wherever a business is looking to go, wherever a company is looking to expand, one of the first questions they have is who's going to fill these jobs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk a little bit about the relationship you guys have with businesses? So obviously, we talked a lot about vets. We have an affinity for vets. We are vets. We want to help them to transition better than we did, maybe, or have that soft landing pad and get. But flip side of the coin, how do you help companies acquire talent?
With INvets, partnering with our employers here, specific Northeast Indiana, we're able to really do a skills translation directly with them. So take a great company we have here, L3 Harris, wonderful company. In the defense industry, a lot of security clearances are required there. So we're able to sit down with our clients, whether it be in person or virtually, and go through what their experiences are and identify what this military skill they have or an experience and what that equals in the civilian world, and then take that to our employers and show them how we've got someone who was a missile technician in the Air Force and how that is a direct skill match to their opportunities working on these satellites with their Hoosiers in Space program. Things like that. You touched on earlier with law enforcement. We still have the law enforcement.
For sure.
Saw that on the site, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a common thread that you're finding? I mean, obviously, we're all individuals. Everybody's coming from some background somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what's the common thread that veterans bring to the table that you found?
A lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of good, I would say. So guaranteed the attention to detail, good order and discipline, ability to follow instructions, ability to operate independently, while at the same time, a huge ability to participate as a member of a team. Some of that factors into what their length of service was. Generally speaking, somebody with longer service is going to be a higher rank, whether that's officer or enlisted. But those core intangibles, quick to learn, quick to adapt, especially. And then
I would just add to those as well, just function well under stress.
Oh, yeah. That's
Always
Great
calm
point.
under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Chaz about this a little bit on his show not too long ago, but that young, particularly again in my experience, young junior enlisted straight out of high school, 18-year-old kid turns into United States Marine in 13 weeks. And over a 4-year period, I went from junior Marine to a non-commissioned officer in charge of, a section of Marines, combat experience, millions of dollars of government equipment and inventory under my control, managing schedules, doing training, pro-con, marks and fit reports and things like that. So like all of this experience that I had in terms of leadership and management and teachability and coachability and, all of that happens within this really concentrated period of time in a way that it takes somebody maybe 6, 7, 8 years in early career experience to develop what a enlisted Marine or enlisted service person does in that first 4 years. So then you extrapolate that out, somebody who's done it, who's served 20, 30 years and then came out retired, and all of those experiences they have. And you also mentioned, particularly in certain industries like the defense industry, oftentimes vets come out with a security clearance, which is extremely expensive for a private company to get for a person who doesn't have it already. So there's certain things like that.
But
I
that
think
carries with you?
it's much easier to renew.
Okay.
So it's much easier to renew and re-up a security clearance that you had rather than starting from fresh. But I think that ability to learn, a friend and mentor that I've connected with, he's a retired colonel, Air Force Colonel Doug Schwartz here from Fort Wayne. He always talks about you give a vet 90 days and they will know your company and your industry inside and out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're lifelong learners.
Yeah.
You're going to do this job. I don't know anything about that. You will soon.
Because that's the thing. You
better.
From the get-go, you're faced with these obstacles
Yeah.
that seem so insurmountable when you start. Like day one of boot camp, it is like you're like, oh man, what'd I do? But then by the end of it, you're locked and cocked and you're confident and all this stuff and then the next thing happens and then you overcome that and then the next thing happens and you overcome that and then you're put in charge of somebody and you do that. And so this iterative building process of overcoming obstacles over and over and over again happens within the military, and then it just becomes somewhat innate that when you get out, whatever you do next, there's no such thing as impossible. It's just like, okay, this is the next obstacle.
I think a lot of what you're describing is why veterans are not just great employees, it's also members of our community. And seeing, if someone's a mechanic in the Army or the Marine Corps, and they're used to working on these heavy equipment, pieces of machinery, and they can move here, have a great job, good paying job, still working in a maintenance environment. I would hazard to say that in 60 days, they're going to be 100% trained up, ready to go. Now they're making that good, livable wage, providing for their family, doing the things they want to, having good personal time and that good quality of life. But here in Indiana, one of the greatest things is that our communities are so welcoming to veterans, and that we've got these really strong pockets where we as INvets have embedded ourselves. And I would say here, what we've done in Northeast Indiana is just amazing to me, and that we are consistently in the community talking to other veteran organizations, talking to employers, talking to resource groups, finding ways that they're already putting value into the community and then connecting those dots.
Yeah.
And then when we do identify some gaps, we're able to bridge some of that and then host our own events where we can invite our clients and our community partners. I mean, and it's overwhelming for me to be able to live and work here, but just, if I'm not wearing a shirt that says INvets, I can walk around, go to the grocery store, wherever, and somebody will see my license plate and say something to me.
Well, I mean, I certainly hope this is a prototype of things to come, for sure. But, you're hitting on something. You guys both have a passion for doing this, right?
Absolutely.
And I think there was a video on your site that Callie had pulled for us, and it says, within the video, it says, we're not selling a product. We're helping people move on to the next phase of their life. And I just, that really touched a nerve with me, just because everybody goes through a transition somewhere somehow. But going from a regimented existence to this huge variable, I'm wondering, when you think about that and that quote that we just pulled, do you feel pressure or does that inspire you? And so obviously you're trying to help, and it sometimes it's got to feel pretty overwhelming. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
I don't know if it is overwhelming. I don't know that I feel that. Okay. Personally, I think it's exciting. There's lots of ways to help them do that. I think we were talking statistics previously. There's a statistic that says, I remember there's lies, more lies, and then statistics. But anyway, 60% of veterans leave their career, their first job out of the military in the first year. What we do is try and reduce that number in Indiana, because it's very tempting for people, and we've had conversations with people and they say, well, I just need a job. No.
Yeah.
No.
You don't.
Right.
You need something that's going to use the talents and the skills that you have. So all those things, excuse me, that Andrew listed, you bring in an employer into this room and say, what skills do you need? They're going to just, rattle off that. So what we do, it's big, but it's just people work with people they know, like, and trust. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
So we have a very personal approach to it. Veteran engagement managers travel to bases. We have some people who are part-time, who are geographically dislocated. We've got somebody in North Carolina, somebody in Texas, somebody in Washington State. They send people back. The first thing this team does is talk to them, which sometimes is hard because people are coming out. We have some people who come out and you say, oh, when are you transitioning? Next week.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have some people who've planned. So you have a huge number of people in your caseload that are at different stages. And what they try to say to them is, you have to talk to us. When we email you or we call you, talk to us. We are not going to talk to you every day for the next year or 9 months or 18 months, but they try to get them ready for that transition. Work on the resume, get that up to date for today. Yes, there's going to be other things that get added in later, but it's easier to add in than build from scratch when crunch time is coming. Is that fair to say? I mean, that's how we try to do it, so that it's a very personal service.
Yeah.
I think that relationship piece is super important in connecting the dots, because a lot of the experiences that people have had in transitioning, and not to, not to dog on any specific agency or whatever, but the VA is hit or miss.
Absolutely.
Depending on where you're at and who you're talking to. And so there's so many times where somebody's like, well, go to the website. Go to the VA website, right? And it's this massive monstrosity of, a bureaucratic federal government website. And you're trying to navigate this thing, and you don't know what the chapters mean of the benefits. I thought I just had education. Like, nobody talked to me about that, or whatever the case is. Or you call an 800 number and you wait on hold for 45 minutes or 2 hours or whatever the case is. I remember one time I tried to schedule a doctor's appointment by going in to the VA. And
how'd that turn out?
He's still waiting.
The lady, the receptionist literally told me, well, call the number.
Right.
I'm like, you're sitting there with a computer at a reception desk. I just need to see a doctor. Like, how do I get a doctor? You have to call the 800 number.
It's crazy.
Wait 2 hours. Talk to somebody in Virginia so you can come see a doctor here. And so, like, I think there's so many of those experiences in transitioning and going from an active duty service member with all of these wrapped, right? Because you get a problem, if you got to go to BAS and the doc's not talking to you there, first sergeant's going to go talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
And something's going to get done, right? And you're gonna cut through the red tape. Somebody's going to fix it, right?
Yep.
There's no such thing when you're on your own again. And so having that, I think that's so huge, and being able to establish those relationships and to build that trust with people as you're getting out, and you're transitioning to that next thing, to have that support system, right?
Yeah.
I think
that's so huge.
One of the things that really adds a lot of value to our organization is the Veteran Engagement Management team. We've got almost every branch. We don't have a Navy, a sailor, is that what you'd call them? Go Army, beat Navy. That's all I got to say. But we've got Air Force, we've got Marines, we've got Army, we've got a mix of National Guard and some reserve component services. So we've got this real world experience in these branches that are now here. And speaking for my colleagues, I'll say that we're here because we've been in their shoes before, and we've felt that struggle. Been in their boots, right?
There you go.
And knowing what that struggle feels like, and like you're saying, Nick, with the VA, we've been that person on hold for 2 hours, just leave it on speaker, hit mute, maybe one day they'll answer.
It's pretty amazing how the camaraderie never leaves, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's great. Just out of curiosity, is there anything, a certain situation either of you guys can think of that was the most rewarding? Was it a specific individual that got placed, somebody who came back and thanked you? Is there just what is the most rewarding component of the job?
There's a lot. I mean, seeing the look in someone's eyes after they've moved here, especially a person. I had a few clients I've met at an installation. And so I was the initial exposure to INvets and what is Indiana, and talking about myself, basically sharing with them, and then taking them through the entire process where they have a question after question after question, most of which don't even pertain to employment or living here. But it's, what do I do about benefits?
It's just overwhelmed, I would assume.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to be able to support that individual and his family through that entire transition process, to find out everything that they need and be able to provide that for them, or be able to do a warm introduction for the person that has that. And Nick earlier had mentioned a VSO here in Allen County.
Yeah.
Joe's a wonderful person. Katie, also a wonderful person. And the fact that we have two is even more awesome. And we've done a lot of introductions where we're able to pick up the phone and talk to one of them there, do email introductions. We're not just handing a business card or say, go to this website.
Right.
And having that, and then seeing that person move here, go meet them at their home, take a picture with them in front of their house, that they're overwhelmed in happiness, and then they start to get tears, and now everybody's crying. It's like, I know we're big, tough infantrymen, right, and we don't cry, but still, it's emotionally moving.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, that's why I do what I do.
So, Sarah, you talked a little bit about, we touched on statistics a little bit, and I touched on earlier the kind of origin story or early life, right? So INvets is 5-ish years old.
Yep.
Right. So in the evolution.
Depends when you start counting.
Right. So in the evolution of an organization, you talk about that form, norm, storm, perform, kind of evolution. And back when INvets was first getting its legs underneath it, it was more of an idea, and what structure should it be, and how is it funded, and who do we partner with.
Yeah.
The idea was bringing vets to Indiana, right,
Yeah.
and connecting them with jobs. You took over as CEO partway through last year.
October.
And
officially.
Yeah, and
I was on trial before that.
we had you interim.
Well,
for
you
a little
passed,
bit, yeah.
so you did something right.
So, can you talk a little bit from, again, previous iteration was trying to figure out who INvets was and what it was going to do, and now Andrew's talked about base visits. Like how many base visits do you guys do a year? How many placements did you have in the state per year? What and if you have any numbers or thoughts on what is the economic impact of those people coming here to those communities and to the state?
Sure. How long have you got?
Yeah,
It's a mouthful.
So the official funding started from the former lieutenant governor in 2020, just in time for COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
When you've
Perfect
got a
timing.
model that's going out and about. But they pivoted and they're flexible. They did a lot of things that was remote, webinars and all that kind of stuff. But we were funded then by the lieutenant governor's office. And we stayed at that level of funding, which was $1 million a year. And there were, I think the maximum number of people we had at $1 million was 6. So, but there were 2 people making visits to bases, trying to do the case management, still bringing in, I think the first numbers I saw was something like 170 new residents. fast forward to 2023, we went to try and secure additional funding, which we were able to do, and we had 2 million enter Andrew and his peer group at that point. Last year we did 385, calendar year 2024, 385 installation visits.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, we're busy.
Yeah. Well, you guys don't get time off, so.
No, well, yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of visits, and those are to installations, which may be just a tap event. We have what we call our sort of flagship bases, Knox and Campbell in Kentucky. In North Carolina, we've got Tony, who works Seymour Air Force. I think it's Bragg again this week, isn't it? Bragg was Bragg, Liberty. I think we're back to Bragg, Lejeune and Cherry Point. So they're there. We are there every week. Now we have somebody in Texas that will be the same kind of model. They send people back, but I was talking to Jesse yesterday. Last year we brought in 490 new residents. That's the veterans and their families, okay? And then this year, today, before the end of March, so we still have April, May and June, we're at 510 as of yesterday. I've not checked this morning. So we're doing that.
Wow.
So when you look over the years, we went from 1 million to 2 million funding. So if you look between 20 and 24, just for argument's sake, so we don't pull in 25 right now, it's about 7 million that we received. And a very conservative estimate is about 22 million to the state in economic revenue when you bring people in.
Pretty solid ROI.
Yeah, what
It
the
is.
heck?
Yeah, that's huge.
Better than my retirement account.
Yeah, hey, right?
So that is a big impact, and when you see what's happening, some of the communities across the state are shrinking. We still bring a lot of people into Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, the bigger cities, but there are people who say, I want the quiet life. I want the rural community. And,
well, we've got the lakes.
We do, and we've got nice parks and all that stuff. But we all know that if the population dwindles in a community, so do the services.
Oh, yeah.
So then we know
interdependence of the parts, right?
Absolutely. And so what we're doing is hopefully bolstering that. And again, I don't think you should just think today. All right. So we bring in a family. We like it when we come in with like 7 kids or 9. But if you brought in a family of 2, and a lot of the kids then go to school here. Right? Some people fall in love at school, they get married, they have their own kids. Again, it's that
generational impact.
You can't just think today, it's long term. And these people will often stay in the state, or as I've noticed before, people leave Indiana and they come back when they want to have a family. So it's a big impact.
So you have the vet, so you guys are proactively going out, you're doing 300 plus base visits a year. You're talking to these service members who are getting ready to separate. You're putting Indiana on their radar. I'm an employer. How do I connect? Like, what's that on, again, that flip side of the coin? Like, how do I, because you guys are going out and finding the vets, right? Yeah. So how do the employers find INvets, or do you go out and find employers, or how does that process work?
All of the above.
Yeah, okay.
So these guys, when they're on visits, they are looking for people to partner with. And some of them are global companies, but they might have an HQ here, like Rolls-Royce is down in Indianapolis. Obviously, they can't do much without asking the UK. They can't blow their nose without asking the UK for a Kleenex. Just kidding. but
wait, where are you from again?
Right. But so we do. They connect with companies, and then they'll introduce them to our director of outreach and community partners, and they build a profile on our platform. We've just enhanced the platform to make it easier to match veterans with companies. So. Yeah. If Andrew's a corporation, he's looking for a logistician or a supply chain or something. The veteran puts in what their skills are, and then there's a match that happens, which makes it easier.
It's pretty effective, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
But the key thing, I think, again, and it's back to the personal touch. So if I tell Andrew I'm applying for a job with you, then or with I'm applying for a job with Rolls or Steel Dynamics or whoever, he then contacts their HR or their recruiter to say, here's a resume, Sarah's in the system, she's one of ours, please just look at the resume.
The advocate headhunter.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I mean, we were talking about this the other day too, is that, you know, so there are some professional organizations, some private organizations that will actively recruit from this talent pool. And then they'll charge 20 or 30% of that first year annual salary. So you guys are a nonprofit.
Yeah.
You talked about you have some government funding, but you also get private sector contributions, right?
We're building more of that,
Okay.
particularly because we're not quite sure what the funding's going to look like come April.
Yeah. So if you're a company and you have the opportunity to, you know, engage with INvets, there's sponsorship opportunities, is there membership type of services, or you know, because again, they can go out and have a private sector company and pay them a ton of money, or they can get this, what is essentially a free service, as long as it stays, you know, funded. How do they participate? How do they support INvets? How do they engage in the best way possible to get the best candidates for themselves?
So at the local level, so we'll just say here in Fort Wayne, if you're a local employer, company, and you want to support the organization, we will do localized events supporting our veteran community specific to our clients, and then anybody that's partnered with us. So we regularly have things going on. There's a few things in the works, and I don't want to ruin anything if it doesn't follow through. But you know, one thing for sure that we'll have is a 10 Caps game. We love the stadium here. Parkview Field is awesome. Yeah. So you know, community opportunity for that. Any company that wants to support us, there's a sponsorship opportunity for recognition there.
Oh, okay.
So you know, if regional partnership here wanted to be our sponsor, you know, we're promoting you as supporting the military community through the sponsorship at INvets. And then we do that across the state, so it's not just here for Northeast Indiana. We've done some events all across the state, and we're always looking for what we're going to call a partner on that. So you know, we provide the service of it, and through your dollars, and you know, it's a charitable contribution as a 501c3. So you know, the appropriate tax credits that you can get for that, and then we work together and we make sure that we're providing what the community needs, what those veterans need, their families, their spouses. And at the state level, I'll let Sarah answer some things, the bigger picture.
Yeah, we have over 600 corporate partners in the system. Again, it's a bell curve. You've a chunk in the middle who are active. You've got some at one end who are phenomenal, and then some at the other end who say, yeah, I support veterans. Harsh but fair. Yeah. So what we're trying to do, we hadn't had a consistent advancement program, but we do now. We have a lady that we rented to own her from October through to January.
It was an option to buy.
An option to buy. We bought. She's full-time now. And so what we're trying to do is talk to some of those partners who do have corporate foundations to see if we can increase the contribution from there and from the communities.
So 600 corporate partners. How many vets are on, like, active on the platform, enrolled with profiles?
There's over, I think there's about 13 or 14,000 who have a profile.
Just under 14,000 total profiles yesterday.
Okay.
But they're not all active today.
Sure. Yeah, but those are opportunities. You've got 13,000-ish opportunities of highly skilled people that your 600 corporate partners can try to tap into for, you know, for their talent needs.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they're there for life. Right? So if they get employed, then they go dormant, but if they decide I want to revisit something, they come back.
Jumping in here to shout out one of our podcast sponsors, Sweetwater. Now, just for some reference, without Sweetwater, our podcast would sound something like this. It would also look something like this. Enough of that. Sweetwater is the nation's largest destination for music gear, as well as your one-stop shop for all things podcasting. We personally worked with them to fill out this studio, and I can say from experience, they are the friendliest team to be working with. You can receive personalized gear advice as well as technical support to get your gear up and running. We honestly cannot recommend them enough. So if you're a music person, a content creator, a podcaster, etc., make sure to check them out in the description below.
Okay, rapid wrap up. These are quick, hard-hitting questions and answers. So the first one is your favorite weekend activity in Northeast Indiana.
Oh, that's easy. So I volunteer a lot, and there's another veteran-centric nonprofit called Close for Joe's, and I spend a lot of my weekends there.
Okay.
Mine's less altruistic. I like kayaking on the river, and I've been scootering around Fort Wayne. So.
All right.
Nice. What's your favorite base location to visit?
That's hard. Okay, to the Marines' credit, I'll take any Marine Corps base.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say that as an Army guy. But yeah,
Sacrilege.
It is. It's just, regardless of rank or what their job was, they're just great people. And
There you go, Nick.
man, I can't believe I'm saying this.
You're just saying that because Nick's sitting here, aren't you?
Everybody needs a hero. Right? even
Oh,
in the Army,
okay.
you
Okay.
gotta have
Marines
somebody to look
anymore.
up to.
Look, now he's done. Now you've alienated him.
Yeah.
No, just that you guys win.
We happen to have really nice, Southern California, Hawaii, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Those are all really good places.
Okinawa,
Yeah, you gotta, you do have 29 palms in there, which isn't the greatest in the world. But.
Yeah, I don't know if I could identify a favourite one. I could tell you one that was challenging, and that was one of the bases in Texas, and everybody was coming back from Kosovo. The National Guard was coming home, and I went down there, and they put us in a basement with a low ceiling, and these guys had just come back. It was baking hot, and all you could smell. Well, you don't need to know what you can smell in that room.
I'll take your word for it. We're good.
It's like, whoa, no, it needs to be out.
And is there a surprising fact or something that surprised either of you guys, or something that you'd like to share that surprised you about Indiana?
Yes. So having grown up in Southern California, coming to the Midwest and not knowing what Four Seasons feels like, not knowing anything. I mean, I grew up as a beach kid. I mean, literally like Huntington Beach, California.
Oh, that's too bad. You had to miss all the snow.
Yeah. But being here, raising my children here, this is really a great place to live, to experience more of life, which sounds kind of weird in comparison to Southern California, but to get outside, like my kids can go sledding, and I can't do that where I grew up.
Yeah.
We can go hike along the trails. We can go walk along the rivers. My kids and I, we like to go magnet fishing. You throw a magnet in the water, you're pulling metal and trash out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like stuff like that I'd never heard of, never thought of, and now I'm here, and I'm like, this is a really fun place to live.
We got to license him out. All right. Good job.
I think I like being outdoors as well. I like doing stuff, and there's lots of options for that. I'm lucky enough, and this is bizarre, okay? I'm lucky enough to live on a lake my address is still Indianapolis. And while it's not, like Michigan, it's 80 acres, and it's on my back doorstep, and Keystone's just less than a mile the other way. So it's a real escape.
Yeah.
And I would never have thought that existed here. So I love that. But I like to get out and walk the trails, walk my dog, ride my bike. There's with the Monon, and then the Fall Creek, and they've put a new trail in. I think there's a lot of things to do. But then on the countering that, you've got quite a busy art and music scene here too.
Oh, yeah.
So there's something for everybody.
Sweetwater for sure.
Yeah.
We have a great culinary scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What is your favorite restaurant in Northeast Indiana?
Ooh. That's a tough one. I've got two. So Proximo is definitely one of the two, and then I'm also going to throw Mercado in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Nice.
But I couldn't decide between the two.
Okay.
I don't know all the restaurants in Northeast Indiana because I'm in Indianapolis. So
Well, then you're going to guess who's going to dinner.
Yeah.
And the last question I had, which I think you guys will appreciate, it's an either or, Social Distortion or the Four Tops.
Social Distortion.
feel this is loaded.
It was loaded. I was reading your bios and I saw what you guys liked. But, and then would you guys like to just leave us with how you'd like people to get in contact with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can visit us online at INvets.org. Our website's got a lot of very good information, but also connect with all of us on LinkedIn. And it's Sarah Harrison, Andrew Messmer, and the entire INvets team. I would love to connect with everybody, whether you're a veteran, whether you're an employer, or just a member of the community that loves listening to this wonderful podcast. Just connect with us. Let's grow our network, and we can all be friends.
I am licensing you out, for sure.
I think that's important. Andrew said our names. Everybody's email is their Christian name, their first name, at INvets.org. So it's not difficult to get hold of us. And, if you're not a corporation working with us, why not?
Yeah.
We're free, and likewise, if you're a veteran in state, if you're in the Guard looking for something else, while you do that, then, we're here.
That's awesome. Well, you guys, on behalf of myself, my partner Nick, and the MarCom team here at NEI, you guys, thank you so much for all you do. It's really important stuff, and I hope we get to work together more.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We appreciate being here.
Thanks, guys.